have a special treat to share with you. From our video archives, we have comments from Brother Theodore Jaracz, who served as a member of the governing body before he died and received his heavenly reward. Young ones, this illustrates that weathering test of faith as a young person can mold us for a long life of faithful service. Brother Jaracz recounts what he had to face as a young man.
During World War II, I was pioneering. When we go back to that period of time, it was a different era. Many times individuals would even threaten you. They were going to run you out of the community or out of the neighborhood, and sometimes even resort to other threats. And I have some vivid recollections of what it was like. I was a young man at the time. It was a joy to be out in the ministry, but you had to be very equipped to be ready to give an answer for the hope that it was within you and to uphold the position that a Christian should take in such turbulent times. The organization published a very fine article. It was very timely on the subject of neutrality. And that appeared in the November 1st, 1939 issue of the Watchtower. It defined what neutrality meant. When it comes to being in support of some cause, we were 100% in support of the kingdom. We were representing God's kingdom as God's ambassadors or envoys here upon the earth. And so we could not engage in any of the world's controversies or share in their war efforts because we were not taking sides. The convention in St. Louis was held during the period of the war. The convention program impressed upon my mind the need for keeping integrity. And in doing that, we would be upholding Jehovah's sovereignty. When it came time for recruiting young men and we had to register for the draft, why, the brothers already knew what their position would be. But since World War II was raging, here in this country especially, there was a lot of patriotic fervor. And the attitude of people was that if you weren't in the Army as a young man, then you were either considered to be unfit or else you were a draft dodger. And so when we went out in the field ministry, many times people would abuse you verbally, especially if they were opposed. There was some provision in the United States Selective Service Act that allowed for ministers to be exempted. But for the most part, only pioneers and some who may have had appointed positions in the congregation were given recognition as ministers. That was rare. But most of the brothers had to go to prison, and they were prepared for this. They knew what was in store, and they made a firm stand for Jehovah's righteous cause. And I enjoyed preaching, but I was prepared to do like many of the other brothers were ready to do, and that was to go to prison if we had to and suffer for righteousness' sake. As a group, we were unpopular, and there was a lot of publicity given to mob violence or beatings or perhaps other things that people were not in agreement with as far as Jehovah's Witnesses are concerned. On the other hand, there were many honest-hearted people who really listened to the kingdom message. We found a lot of sheep-like ones, and they were sympathetic to us. They had a love for the Bible. We had many home Bible studies that were being conducted at that time. Well, we would always refer to the precedent that we have in the position that Jesus Christ took when he was before Pilate and a Roman official. And as Jesus pointed out, his kingdom was no part of this world. And since we represent God's kingdom, we're sort of aliens in this world representing that government. And so as a result, that's where our allegiance belongs. So that does not mean that we're seditionists or that we're opposed to human governments. It simply means that we're neutral. This helped to strengthen the brothers, because when they saw others holding fast to the truth and maintaining their integrity, and that was a challenge in those turbulent days, that steeled them for opposition that they had to face. So rather than frightening our brothers, as the Apostle Paul pointed out, we should not be frightened by our opponents. Our brothers were really filled with a greater measure of Jehovah's Spirit, which enabled them to be bold and also to be fearless in declaring the truth. If we take our stand firmly on Jehovah's side and support that side, then we're going to succeed in accomplishing what he wants us to do. He's backing us up. And as Jesus promised, he would be with us down to the conclusion of the system of things. We experience that. As the prophet Zechariah wrote, it's not by human might or power, but by my Spirit. It would be impossible for humans to do what Jehovah accomplished. We have to give him full credit for things that have transpired. And it's a marvel in our eyes when we look back to see how he did it. We were simply instruments in his hand, and he maneuvered us and guided us by his Spirit, and we tried to be responsive to the way that Spirit led us.